product or service we know today once came from someone's ideas. Ideas that help protect our country and our lives. Ideas that produce the results of research and development. Ideas that reduce costs, increase productivity, or improve performance and quality in manufacturing and processing. Ideas that produce all the things we need and want, all the services we use, new ways of doing things, new uses for existing products. And of course, ideas that help us get more fun out of life. Today's world is highly competitive. To compete successfully takes creative thinking, the only kind of thinking that produces sound ideas. American industry needs a continuing flow of ideas to find new ways of doing things to meet the competition from foreign imports. And here at home, new ideas are equally important. Companies must constantly produce new ideas to successfully compete with each other. And the price of failure often means elimination from the market. Competition is even keener for the individual. The man or woman who gets ahead today, who stands out from the crowd, is the one who thinks creatively, who comes up with sound ideas for doing a more effective job. It once was thought that only a certain few could produce ideas, people like Benjamin Franklin, who produced so many new inventions. A different kind of harmonica, bifocal glasses, the Franklin stove, scores of other things that people needed and wanted. And he invented the lightning rod, too, after proving that lightning is electricity, and proving it the hard way. Naturally, most of the attention still goes to relatively few people, outstanding inventors, scientists, writers, painters, and the like. But today, we know that sound, profitable ideas can come from anyone, from people in jobs where creativity is least expected, as well as from those who are paid just to be creative. Every one of us, to some degree, has the ability to generate and produce ideas, whether our job is to solve problems in engineering, research and development, marketing, finance, manufacturing, or any other business function. Each of us can produce ideas that will increase our value to our organizations and ourselves. The only question is, how can we produce more and better ideas? First, let's see what we mean by creativity, the ability to solve problems and ideas. One definition says it is the mental process by which we combine and recombine past experience with modification in such a way that we arrive at new patterns, new configurations, and new arrangements. For example, the engineer first combines and recombines past experience, then modifies and changes the old arrangement until he arrives at a new and better design. But whether the problem is to design a simple gadget or devise another way of doing a better job, the important thing is to produce a sound idea and then develop it. This process of solving problems has certain basic characteristics that are simple and easy to grasp. First, an idea doesn't just happen by itself. It must be generated and developed. Creative thinking is an active process, whether it's a simple thing like a child putting together an arrangement of building blocks, finding the solution to a crossword puzzle, solving a complex problem in chemistry, physics, or mathematics, or working out any of the less exciting problems we all face in our day-to-day jobs. Even though there may be no physical action involved, there is always mental action, plenty of it, going on in solving a problem. So the first characteristic of creativity is that it requires mental action. Second, solving any problem or getting an idea calls for conscious action. When people get together to brainstorm ideas, they don't just sit waiting for ideas to come out of the blue. They're making conscious effort to generate ideas. attribute listing another technique. A group of people make a study. First, they make a list of a product's attributes or characteristics, then apply these attributes to something else. Like this light meter. One of its attributes or characteristics is a sensitive indicator that responds to light. In this instance, each member of the group consciously tries to think of other uses for this kind of indicator, to measure sound, or electric current, or temperature, or other applications for the characteristic. The point is that their thinking is conscious and deliberate. A third characteristic of the creative thinking process is that it does not have to produce a new idea. The aerosol spray idea was first developed for insecticides, but later it was adapted to cleansers, to hair preparations, to suntan lotions, and other uses. These adaptations didn't involve revolutionary ideas, but they did sell a lot of merchandise. Thus, creative thinking produces answers to such questions as, what are other uses for our present product? How can we adapt similar products to our use? How can we modify our present products for new uses? Can we add to it or subtract from it? Creative thinking can make existing ideas more profitable without trying to find completely new ideas. The final characteristic of solving problems creatively is the fact that the idea usually fills a need. Necessity is the mother of invention, and pure research often discovers something for which there is no immediate use. But even pure research is conducted on a firm conviction that all knowledge is useful and is needed. Even though an idea doesn't fill an immediate need or want, experience shows that sooner or later a useful application will be found. For example, when the idea of radar was first conceived, many people questioned its usefulness. Today, it is making a priceless contribution both in war and in peace. Thus, creative thinking has 4 basic characteristics that result in sound ideas. Now, let's see just what elements are necessary for creative thinking. Here's a mathematical formula that expresses them in symbols. And here's what these symbols mean. The C, of course, refers to creativity, the process by which we solve problems and produce sound, practical ideas. The I is for native intelligence. Each one of us was born with some intelligence. It's what we do about developing it that counts. T is our individual talents, and bear in mind that we all have some basic talents. E stands for our experience and environment, the things we learn as we go along and the climate in which we learn them. A means attitude that affects our thinking, either our own attitude or that of our organization, attitude that helps or hinders us from creative thinking. The small letter I is imagination, the all-important element that lifts our thinking out of the routine and helps us stand out from the crowd. And finally, the distinctive symbol on the end stands for infinity, because imagination is unlimited. As Professor Albert Einstein once said, imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the whole world. While the factors involved in the creative process can be expressed mathematically, there is an actual step-by-step procedure for getting the right answer to any problem. The first step in this procedure is to accumulate all available information, learning what others have done toward solving a problem similar to the one with which we are faced. The next step, known as trial and error, consists of going beyond what others have done and experimenting on your own. This is the stage in which you let your imagination take over and figure things out for yourself. This is the phase when you change, modify, create to get something better. In developing any idea, there comes a period when conscious thinking produces no further help in solving the problem. When you keep going by letting your subconscious take over. At this stage, your brain is digesting all the information and thought you've put into solving the problem. These are the preliminary phases that lead to the most exciting step of all, the idea stage, when everything becomes crystal clear, when your natural creativity takes over and produces the idea that solves the problem. The final step is being sure you have the right answer to the problem, evaluating your idea objectively. This means making sure you have considered all the elements, weighed them objectively, and that you have expressed your thoughts correctly. Now, since there is a step-by-step procedure to solving problems and producing ideas, why don't we produce more and better ones? The reason lies in natural blocks to creativity. Psychologists classify these blocks as perceptual, cultural, and emotional. But regardless of how they're classified, if we recognize them, understand them, and overcome them, we can think clearly and creatively. One of the blocks to problem solving is lack of confidence in our own creative ability. Few of us think of ourselves as idea men. We simply can't picture ourselves in the ivory tower environment from which we believe most ideas emerge. Too much conformity also can block creative thinking. Often we fail to think creatively because we're afraid of rocking the organization boat. We forget we are individuals who must think for ourselves. An especially complicated group of blocks to problem solving consists of what are known as personal neuroses, a whole range of imaginings and fears that keep us from thinking clearly, prevent us from getting ideas and expressing them. But the block that most often prevents us from solving on-the-job problems creatively is simply failure to use our natural abilities. The same abilities to which we give free rein when we're off the job. Even when we get good ideas, too often we fail to express them because we are too concerned with what people think about us or how they'll react to our suggestions. Remember when surveys showed that car buyers wanted only bigger, fancier automobiles? Yet a few creative thinkers disregarded the figures and succeeded in building a large and profitable market for smaller cars. And often we worry too much about reason and logic. Just remember all the reasons a bee can't fly. Finally, we all too often let our emotions stand in the way of clear thinking. Everyday emotions like fear, anger, pride, or jealousy, as well as built-in preferences, prejudices, and opinions. These, then, are the major blocks to thinking creatively, the barriers to success. When we recognize them, when we understand how they affect us, and when we consciously try to overcome them, we are on the way to creative thinking. Now, what can we do specifically to help solve our day-to-day problems more effectively? One thing is to avoid being mentally rigid, looking at a situation the same narrow way every time. Instead, we must learn to look at problems in different ways, from different points of view. In addition to looking at the problem from every angle, we must be sure we consider all the factors involved, not just concentrate on part of the problem and overlook other parts that may be important. Another way to get the right answer to a problem is to be sure we understand it before we try to solve it. And getting too close to the problem often is even more frustrating. We must figuratively stand back so we can see it objectively. And of course, getting all the facts before jumping to a conclusion is important, no matter what the problem is. Very often, the solution to one problem can provide the answer to many similar problems. Now, here are a few basic suggestions for developing your creative ability in your day-to-day job. First, write down all the ideas you get about your job and about your career, whenever and wherever you get them. Broaden your interests. Read books. Develop new hobbies. And get away from yourself. Meet new people. Get the benefit of their experience and thinking, and add it to your storehouse of knowledge. Systematically convert your ideas into concrete suggestions. Even one good idea will win recognition and gain new respect for your ability. And if you are responsible for the performance of others, place your most creative people where they can spark others into producing ideas. Get your entire organization thinking creatively. Now, let's review how we can solve our day-to-day problems more effectively and produce more and better ideas. First, remember that everyone has creative ability. Regardless of the kind of work you do or the degree of your responsibility, you can be more effective in your job. Next, solving any problem is a conscious act. The problem must be thought through. Third, you must put to work all the factors that contribute to creativity: intelligence, talent, experience, environment, attitude, and perseverance. Fourth, recognize the steps you must go through in the creative process: gathering information, experimenting on your own, letting your subconscious work on the problem, getting the idea that will solve the problem, and finally, evaluating your solution objectively. Fifth, recognize and remove such blocks to creative thinking as lack of confidence, too much conformity, personal neuroses, and failure to use your creative ability. Sixth, if you are convinced you're right, don't worry too much about what people think, and don't even be too concerned with reason and logic. Seventh, don't let your emotions get in the way of clear thinking. And finally, to help ensure the right answer to any problem, look at it from different points of view. Consider all parts of the problem. Be sure you understand the problem before you try to solve it. Don't get too close to the problem. Don't jump to conclusions. And consider applying the solution to one problem whenever you are faced with similar problems. Remember, in today's competition, the man who gets ahead is the man who thinks creatively. The only kind of thinking that solves problems effectively and produces more and better ideas.